Welcome to Late Nights with the Booze. We're your hosts, Jeff
Leia,
and this is
the
the
Booze
Booze
Podcast.
Podcast.
Tonight's episode, we'll be talking about From the Desert to the Frost.
Our journey from UAE to Canada.
All right, let's get started. So, um, the first question would be why did we decide, or what were our considerations in deciding to move to Canada when our life in the UAE was good? We had a good and decent job, high paying job. We're able to travel. There's no tax. I mean, life was good in the UAE.
I'd say perfect. Right.
Yeah.
Perfect and at some point,
Yeah. So I guess let's tell the audience what were our thought process and what our considerations and how
Well,
did we decide to um go to
we
Canada.
had a backstory for that wherein we decided that we should be going on an adventure to Australia, right?
Yeah.
So since when we had our immigration um, lawyer to validate what are the requirements or needed for us to go there, and uh, it reached to a point that we stopped dreaming of going to Australia because the requirement was like $1 million
Yeah, it was very
minimum.
hard.
So we decided we can't reach that kind of amount for savings or a budget for that if you just stay in the Philippines. So
Yeah.
that started our journey going through different countries,
Mm-hmm.
trying our luck and be able to save from that country, and we ended up with UAE. uh there's a lot of backstory there, but from
Which we already discussed in
yeah,
our second episode.
so
Yeah.
from the UAE we were lucky enough to gain more, and I think the next would be when we went home last
2022.
2022.
So that was 2 years after COVID happened. That was our first time coming back to the Philippines. And we met with our extended family. And they told us that they were going to Canada. And she shed some light that Canada is really a good place to stay. They're very family oriented, and so that actually started
Our
our thought of going to Canada.
thought process on going there, because in the same time we already had Johan, and we were thinking that it's a good future for him to be able to reach citizenship there,
Yeah,
right?
and so what was our entry point to Canada? There's actually a lot of ways or a lot of pathways to come to Canada, but
During that time,
yes,
it was really the student pathway that has been highly promoted by a lot of people. And yeah, you can see a lot of YouTube videos there, sharing different point of views, and I think that will give more ideas for the rest of the people who would prefer coming here.
yeah. So with the student pathway, what actually happens next is so you'll be what do you call this
A student for a certain period
student
of
for two
time.
years. Usually it's 2 years, right?
Well, there are 1 year, and the only reason why they're suggesting 2 years is that it, the immigration or IRCC would give, uh, I'd say, have the possibility of gaining additional 3 years for a postgraduate work permit or PGWP, and that's what majority would want,
Yeah.
like giving 3 years for you to try to hit that permanent residency.
Yes, that's right. And within those 3 years, you'll have the chance or the opportunity to apply for permanent residency, depending on the job
Industry. Yeah.
or the
So
industry.
there are branches. Once you go to a student pathway, your next step would be, if you're single, then your next step would be PGWP, which is a work permit. But for some who has like partners, common law partners, whatnot, or
Spouses.
spouses, they they'll be given an opportunity to gain that permanent residency on another side, which is on your partner. But nowadays it's a bit difficult because
Mm,
of the requirements and a lot of changes in IRCC. But that's what we were thinking on during that time. So we had that opportunity um, to gain more channels to be able to reach the permanent residency goal.
yeah, exactly. So basically, that was our thought process. And what was important is that um, we can go to Canada together, so no one will be left behind. So that was
Deciding point.
our deciding part. And so we told our family that we would want to try to go to Canada, and we laid out our plans to them. And my dad said that you should discern on your decision, because y- you've prayed so much for your jobs,
True.
um for your for the
Status.
opportunities that you were given in the UAE.
And
God
you're in
has,
a good place that time, and now you're trying to, human as we are, we're trying to move forward to a different route now. So I
yeah,
think his point of view was, you asked for it and now it was given, and now you're trying to look for another
yeah.
thing that
So
will probably mess up.
yeah,
You don't know.
so that was what he said, to discern on your decision, pray on it, because basically God has blessed you with so much. And like he because what he told us that so we were on a place where we're just a few minutes walk to the office, and just a few minutes walk to the church, few minutes walk to the hospital. It was like in
The right
Bisaya,
place.
plaster tanilo in or
We're in the right
yeah,
place.
we're in the right place. So that was also one of our considerations. So going back to 2023, was it 2023? Yeah, 2023. That was when we tried to lodge our application,
Yeah.
and
I
just
can still remember that time when um, we went home that time,
just
went
to
to the
lodge.
Philippines, just a quick
But actually,
3 week.
there was actually two reasons we went to the Philippines. No, three reasons. First would be the death anniversary of your dad.
Yeah.
Second would be to surprise your family that I'm already 5 months pregnant. And the
And
third
third
would
would be
be for
to,
us to lodge our application. And what we were thinking was that, so yeah, we will try to lodge the application.
yeah,
If we get an approval, then it's God's
it's a sign.
plan.
Yeah.
It's a sign that it's God's
So,
plan.
yeah, and I think just an idea on why we're lodging it in the Philippines, wherein it's an online process. It's more of the difficulty during that time and getting approved when you're outside the Philippines. So
Yeah.
there were a lot of complications. So we just went back. I mean, we just added it as one of the reasons why we went back to the Philippines.
Yeah. And of course, to say, not say goodbye, but at least meet with our family and our friends, because it would be like
A long
a long
time.
time before we can go
Go
back
back,
home. And
especially if we get approved, right?
yes, exactly. And just a disclaimer. So everything that we're talking about here is just based on our experience, and
It
uh,
might not be applicable nowadays, especially
yeah,
with the
it may not
changes.
be applicable nowadays because IRCC has been having a lot of changes lately. So if you are planning to come to Canada, you have to do your research because it changes every
Yeah.
now and then,
So
all the policies.
if you plan now, you have to look at processes that are available right now.
Yeah,
You can't just go back to YouTube videos or
yes,
even from the websites.
correct.
I would suggest you go to canada.ca and they will provide
That's
you
the
the benefit.
best
Yeah, that's the
source
legit source.
of information. So yeah, going back, so we initially planned that I would be the student and Boo would be the OWP or open work permit.
Holder, yeah.
Yeah, but then that was October 14. I paid for the registration, and that was the same day that I found out that I was pregnant. So we both decided that we would be delaying our Canada dream for a year or two because it would be hard to go to a new country with a newborn and you're studying. I don't think that I would be able to take on all of that at once. But then one of the representatives from the
The school.
school where we are living, he went to Dubai and he messaged us if we're interested in meeting him. So we did. We went to Dubai. We met with him,
Angelo.
Angelo, and so then he told us that there's a new program and it's an IT course. Maybe you guys are interested, or maybe your husband is interested to take on that course or that program. So we decided that he will be the student because
We
he's
were he proposed that we take that route,
yeah.
and he didn't even mention that IT is really a shortage industry.
Mhm.
We were trying to research if what would it what would happen if we're gonna change our route from you taking business
Administration.
administration
Yeah.
and then me going through IT program. And I think we found out that it's beneficial for us if we're gonna go through the IT program.
Yeah. And I think it was a blessing in disguise. I mean, everything um, worked out in the end because if I was the student, it would be hard.
A bit challenging
It would
for
be
us
a
to
bit
find
challenging.
better pathways
Yeah,
for us to go for with
exactly.
all the
With all
changes.
the changes right
I'm
now,
not saying those who took the program may have no what do you call this, no chances at all, but it's more of
we have
our perspective was it's easier right now that we have the IT program rather than taking the business, especially that it wasn't our core skills in the
although
past.
even though we both graduated with IT, but we did not practice.
You it,
I did not practice IT, so
their core skills have really changed from
from
technical to a different
yeah, exactly.
core.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
so that was the reason why we decided to go to Canada aside from the immigrant status.
and which pathway we
And that is
what we're trying to achieve.
yeah, exactly.
So I think the next we have to tackle is more on what were the preparations that we did for the move. How about you?
So that time so aside from going home to the Philippines and lodging our application, so we lodged our application in February. Oh no, January, last week of
January,
January, and we got our approval 3 weeks after,
last week or the week before. Yeah,
two to three weeks after.
third week of February, I
Yeah, and
think.
then I gave birth in May, and we applied for our baby's visa in June, and we got it in August, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So we sold our stuff. I think that we have like 4 boxes shipped out to the Philippines and 2 boxes shipped out here in Canada.
Luckily, we have someone who's gonna accept that
Yes,
box.
and so aside from that, we also did our research. We tried to look for a place to stay. It was kind of challenging at the time because not all landlords would accept having a newborn as a
Newborn,
tenant because it would disrupt the
other
routine.
tenants,
It would disrupt
or
other tenants.
if we're living with them as part of the whole household, like somewhere in basement, or it would disturb them as well.
Yeah, exactly. Good thing we're able to find an apartment that's that has a good location. You know,
A strategic
strategic
location for
location.
us.
Even before we found this place, I've been praying for God to put us in the right place, just like how He did it in when we were in the
UAE.
UAE. So we're in an apartment that's just a few minutes walk to his school, and just a minute walk to the bus stop, so we can go to the nearest hospital, or we can go to the superstore. We can
For
take on the
grocery.
bus. um, the church is like 5-6 minutes drive away, and um, if like I go to my workplace, it's just 20 minutes
Yeah. Is
bus
it
ride.
really?
20 minutes bus ride. So it's really a good location. And we were thankful and grateful for our friends, for our extended family who helped us find this place. They reserved it for us, they prepared it for us. They actually, put in tables, chairs,
Yeah.
dining tables,
Yeah, pretty
a
much.
crib. They pretty much helped us with starting up and settling in. So we're very thankful to our extended family, Dave
And
and Dad,
yeah,
and to Tita and the whole family,
yeah.
because without them,
It would have been more
it
challenging
would
to
have been more
to move
challenging. And that was also one of the reasons or the deciding factor why we chose
this
this
city
this city
instead of going to Alberta.
or going to Toronto, because they're here. And
We know someone here who can help us start a new life.
and it's easier because we have someone we know, so
People
we
would teach,
won't we won't get homesick a lot, or
and people would not really teach, but give us tips and tricks on how to, get on with
and how to
our
navigate
lives.
this
Yeah.
this new start.
Well, one of the things, those were the whole, that was what you shared, was the whole story of us getting here. But the
Mm-hmm.
preparations we did, aside from selling our stuff from the UAE and transferring the rest, sending it to the Philippines and the rest to Canada, was really setting our minds to a new chapter. Especially for me, I prepared so much. I was wondering how it would be being a student outside the Philippines, plus going to school at this age. I mean, uh, there were a lot of situations or scenarios that in the Philippines, at this age, people go to school, but it's a different thing when you're outside, considering the cost, the location, the people, the culture, and everything else. Put into one, you have to think over how you're gonna react. This thinking started when you're in UAE, where you have to also think of the cultural differences you have with
Yeah,
the people locally. So having that idea, you have to set up your mind that when you're in a different country, you have to act
you have
accordingly.
you have to know
You have to know how to converse with them.
how to adapt
Yeah,
and to be open and to unlearn
some
um
bad habits.
some yeah,
I'd say it's what we're used to.
or
So
unlearn what you were
yeah,
used to, because it's different from place to place, so you should always be open to adapt to new change or to adapt to change. And also I think that was one consideration that we had was our age. So they would say even if you're 50, you can come here, but then it would also affect your scores,
Yeah,
right?
when you're
Scores when
trying
you applied
to
for,
go or to reach your PR goal,
yeah.
there would be a lot of consideration, point system, of the pathway that you chose, and the location. There are a lot of things to consider, and you can learn from that if you go through different references involving that
Yeah.
programs for the government from the government.
And it was actually the perfect time for us to come here because if we delayed it for a year or two, we wouldn't be able to come
I
with,
think it wouldn't push through.
yeah, we won't be able to come with you or to go with you coming here because there has been another change with the student pathway. That's why you really have to do your research before you come here. Like, not only one research, but a lot of research
You know,
before
can
deciding.
it's not just one time research, because you have to also try to predict what's going to happen in the next X years. Because, for example, right now, this is the policy, and there are a lot of things to consider. Later on, maybe it would change,
Yeah.
and your plan A would not work at that time. So you'll be left with nothing.
So you have to do plan B and then
Yeah, you
plan
have to
C.
have and consider the idea that at the end of there's always a calculated risk
Yeah.
that you have to do.
That was what I was thinking as well. Calculated risk.
Yeah,
You always have
because
to have that.
you wouldn't know what will happen in the next X years, and if you just consider one plan, and if that doesn't happen,
If that
what will
doesn't
be
work out, right?
yeah, what will be your next step, right?
Exactly.
And you'll be stressed out with all of the things that's coming to you during that
Yeah.
time.
And I think what we forgot to mention was during the preparation, first and foremost, you would need to have funds
Yeah,
because without the funds,
and
you will not be able to come here.
fortunately, we've already established ourselves in such a way that if we don't get to see, or if we couldn't find work for X number of months, there's still a chance that we will survive, right?
Because of our online job.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Um, you pre- we prepared ourselves aside from the tuition fee,
Mhm.
uh, with an average of $18,000, I think, per
Per
year.
year.
So do the math, but that's just as of that time. So things might change at this time,
Mhm.
and we even chose the one of the cheapest schools that we have here. So think about it, pray for it, calculate the risk. If you're single, if somebody will sponsor you, the better. Good luck and enjoy. But if it's gonna be just you, you have to consider a lot of options, a lot of things, not just options, factors. Consider
Yeah.
a lot of factors on deciding whether to pursue with your Canadian dream.
Yeah. So what else? What else have we
I think
forgotten?
that's what the preparations we did. I mean, bottom line is really prepare yourself both with your financials, with your mindset, because being here, if you're used to having your family around, you'll get homesick if you don't know anyone. And that
And
leads us to, I think,
creating a community.
creating a community.
Yeah.
But I think before we go through that, we have to look at how we settled in. So, um, yeah, I think considering just on the settling part, a few things that we have to also look into would be the weather, especially in Canada. There are
Yeah.
parts
That
of Canada with v- very cold temperature. So if you're
we're,
not a cold person,
yeah.
if you're not used to being going through areas with, enjoying the cold weather, then think about where you're going.
That's the reason why we had two boxes shipped here, because all of our winter clothes that we have accumulated over the years, we
While
brought
traveling.
we brought it here so that we don't have to buy anymore.
Yeah,
Although they would say that it's
it's
better to
better.
buy here, but so far the winter clothes that we brought from the UAE worked for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So seems like somebody's awake.
Yeah, so it's like someone wants to join the podcast tonight.
Wanna join?
Oh.
Don't stare. Anyway, I think that goes to the next topic we had, which is to
Yeah,
building a community.
building a community since you're starting in a new country. It's
I think we
important.
learned our lesson.
No, because in the UAE we didn't like we
Didn't made an effort.
not really, but we just kept
We didn't open ourselves to the idea of having a community.
yeah we just kept to ourselves, and knowing that we have a plan of staying here for good. I think it's the perfect opportunity to create or to join a community. That was the reason why, or that was one of the considerations why we joined CFC. Actually, our extended family invited us. Initially, we didn't want to join because we just started. So we arrived in September, and the CLP training was in November. Oh no, October. It was in October. So we decided to just join the next training because we don't want to bother anyone taking care of our baby. But then she said, "No, don't worry. We can take care of
A lot of
Johan.
people will be
A
taking
lot of
care.
people will be taking care of Johan." I thought, okay. But then we don't have a car. So I said,
Traveling, going back and forth.
yeah, because it's quite far from, so the meeting place is quite far from where we live. So I was thinking, oh, let's not join because we don't want to like bother.
Anyone
Although we know it's okay for okay with them, but we don't want to bother people. Um, co- um,
coming over,
picking
being
us
us.
up and dropping us off, and then I think that week our gratuity from the UAE arrived, so we had the means to buy a car, and so we did.
Yeah, my end of service. Uh, I mean, the budget that I got from UAE was just right enough for us to get a car for us to use.
Yeah, so we got a car then,
Yeah, and I think
and I think that was the reason. So we don't have any more reasons
reasons
what to
not
say
to join.
no. Yeah,
And I
so
think joining the CFC wasn't really just for the it's partly the community, but on top of that, it it would help us strengthen our faith. And we've been, I think, one of the things for me personally was really to consider the idea of strengthening our faith, because we've been struggling have of waiting for Johan for the past 14 years,
mm,
and I think it's time to strengthen our faith more and get to know God on a spiritual level.
yeah,
That's for me though.
and I think it would be a great community for
Johan.
Johan to grow in.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So yeah, so to wrap up tonight's episode, what
Yeah,
would be our like recommendations? I think we've already mentioned it earlier, but what would be just in a nutshell? What would be our recommendations to those who are planning to come to Canada but are just are not really sure if it's the best decision?
uh for me personally, think think it over. Calculate your risk. Check if you're ready to be here, if you're single, alone, even if you have a spouse. Because right now, from what I can recall, uh, for you to be able to bring your family to Canada, the same as where we are right now, you have to take a master's degree in a school. So
Mm-hmm.
if you do that, you'll need to add more funds to your tuition, cost of living, and if you
Show
have,
money.
let me rephrase that, it's proof of funds. Show money is you don't have to show it, and
Oh yeah,
you'll have to expect to use that money for your stay here. It's not a show money, but yeah, those things you have to consider, being out of far from your family. And if you know someone here, better. But again, you have to trust people. You have to know who to trust and always verify whatever information you have. Check from the website from Canada. Canada.ca would give you all the things that you need. But again, factor in all your options. So if you'll be coming here, check the weather, the place to stay, how far are you from the school, these things. So it's, in a nutshell, prepare yourself for something that you haven't undergone in the
especially
Philippines.
especially if this is the first time that you're going out
Of the
of the
Philippines.
Philippines.
Used
If
to,
you're not an OFW who just
yeah, I think what those that was one of the things that helped us,
adjust
adjust on
easily.
moving to Canada is we've been out of the Philippines for the past
7 years.
7 years or so.
Yeah,
We've experienced being alone, we've experienced different cultures, and it's just another change of scenery, change of culture, change of
everything.
weather, everything else. So it was easier for us.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think what you would need to think about is to discern and to pray for your plans, because just to pray if this is what
The right,
God has planned for you, and to prepare yourself. So aside from spiritually, mentally, financially,
I think it's everything. I mean,
everything.
if you have prepared for something, you have to work things out, you have to pray. You can't just pray and bahala na si Lord. It's not the way, it's not how it works.
Yeah,
You'll have to pray to give you strength to survive this dream of yours to move out of the Philippines and work and soon enough be a resident of Canada.
yeah. And Filipinos are known to be very resilient.
Yeah, but
So
we can't just rely on that resiliency. I mean, let's face it, be practical. We have that, and that would help us survive, but not live for that long time if you're not really prepared.
yeah, you have to be prepared, and you have to be open that, for example, you um, brought your spouse with you. You have to be open that when you come here, it doesn't mean that if you're a manager, we've talked
Yeah,
about this in the previous podcast, that doesn't mean that if you're a manager in the Philippines, you'll get the same job here, because what they're
be
looking
open to an
for,
entry level job
yeah, because what they're looking for is a Canadian experience. So you have to be open with entry level jobs.
and work your way up from there.
Exactly.
I've seen a lot of YouTube videos. I know those people who went to Canada or who came to Canada were lawyers and ended up, some were like Uber drivers, when started with when going to school and be a paralegal and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. So as long as you accept where you'll be going and know the risk, I think you'll and
You'll
have,
succeed.
yeah, and have those preparations. At some point you will have success. The chances of success would be higher than
Yeah.
others, I'd say.
Yeah. All right. I think we have discussed a lot for tonight's
Yeah,
episode, and
it's
I
been quite
hope
time.
you guys were able to like get
An overview
an overview
of
or
what we've gone through, our
yes,
experiences, and even learnings. I
and you
mean,
were able to get some learnings from tonight's episode. And we will see you in our next episode with late nights
with
with
the
a booze.
booze.
Good night, guys.
Night.